Right then, welcome back to the HODLing Room, the world's greatest Bitcoin book club.
That makes me smile every time you say that.
the world's only Bitcoin book club, but still, that still counts. Still counts as the greatest.
Is it? Do
Um,
we count as the best or the worst?
Both simultaneously.
Nice, smashing it.
Now, we're recording this about 5 minutes after the previous episode. So, Mike, how are you doing in that 5 minutes since I last spoke
good,
to you?
good. I've got a nice cup of coffee, so
Me
I'm
too.
ready to go.
Excellent stuff. Now, let me share my screen. We are currently on chapter 3 of Saifedean Ammous's The Bitcoin Standard. Shall I read again and you do the wizardry on the screen and stuff?
Sure, yeah. Let's go for
Okay,
that.
lovely. So, chapter 3, Monetary Metals. As human technical capacity for the production of goods became more sophisticated and our utilization of metals and commodities grew, many metals started getting produced at large enough quantities and were in large enough demand to make them highly saleable and suited for being used as monetary media. These metals' density and relatively high value made moving them around easier than salt or cattle, making them highly saleable across space. The production of metals was initially not easy, making it hard to increase their supply quickly and giving them good salability across time. Due to their durability and physical properties, as well as their relative abundance in Earth, some metals were more valuable than others. Iron and copper, because of their relatively high abundance and their susceptibility to corrosion, could be produced in increasing quantities. Existing stockpiles could be dwarfed by new production, destroying the value in them. These metals developed a relatively low market value and would be used for smaller transactions. Rarer metals such as silver and gold, on the other hand, were more durable and less likely to corrode or ruin, making them more saleable across time and useful as a store of value into the future. Gold's virtual indestructibility in particular allowed humans to store value across generations, thus allowing us to develop a longer time horizon orientation. Initially, metals were bought and sold in terms of their weight, but over time, as metallurgy advanced, it became possible to mint them into uniform coins and brand them with their weight, making them far more saleable by saving people from having to weigh and assess the metals every time. The three metals most widely used for this role were gold, silver, and copper, and their use as coins was the prime form of money for around 2,500 years, from the time of the Greek king Croesus, who was the first recorded to have minted gold coins, to the early 20th century. Gold coins were the goods most saleable across time because they could hold their value over time and resist decay and ruin. They were also the goods most saleable across space because they carried a lot of value in small weights, allowing for easy transportation. Silver coins, on the other hand, had the advantage of being the most saleable good across scales because their lower value per weight unit compared to gold allowed for them to conveniently serve as a medium of exchange for small transactions, while bronze coins would be useful for the least valuable transactions. By standardizing values into easily identifiable units, coins allowed for the creation of large markets, increasing the scope of specialization and trade worldwide. While the best monetary system technologically possible at the time, it still had two major drawbacks. The first was that the existence of two or three metals as the monetary standard created economic problems for the fluctuation of their from the fluctuation of their values over time due to the ebbs of supply and demand, and created problems for owners of these coins, particularly silver, which experienced declines in value due to increases in production and drops in demand. The second, more serious flaw was that the governments and counterfeiters could, and frequently did, reduce the precious metal content in these coins, causing their value to decline by transferring a fraction of their purchasing power to the counterfeiters or the government. The reduction in the metal content of the coins compromised the purity and soundness of the money. Just on that, it's mad to even think that they had gold coins in circulation. I mean, think of the pound coin now. What's that even made of?
It's not gold. I know that, but I guess copper would be my guess. I don't know.
It's all copper. It's all copper now, isn't it? All the coins.
Yeah,
What's
there's
the
no gold in
10p?
it.
What's the 50p?
I would imagine it's just copper with like a silver plating or something. I don't know if it's silver.
Not actual sterling silver.
No, I have not. I actually don't know. Let me find out.
Go on, you can get on the Google for that.
So it's bimetallic. It is made of two metals. The outer ring is gold-coloured nickel brass, and the inner ring is silver-coloured nickel-plated alloy. So
Right.
I'm guessing that's what the silver is, nickel-plated alloy.
This is nickel.
So yeah, nickel's not even as good as copper.
Have you seen the Joe Rogan podcast?
I haven't, no. I have seen it, but like, I don't know what.
He's got a guy on there. But when they're talking about stuff, he's got a guy on there. I think his name is Jamie or something. Where he's basically just googling everything they're saying. He's like, Jamie, what's coins made of? Is it nickel or is it gold? So you're the Jamie of the podcast, you're the fast finger AI guy. Right, let's crack on. By the 19th century, however, with the development of modern banking and the improvement in methods of communication, individuals could transact with paper money and cheques backed by gold in the treasuries of their banks and central banks. This made gold-backed transactions possible at any scale, thus obviating the need for silver's monetary role and gathering all essential monetary salability properties in the gold standard. The gold standard allowed for unprecedented global capital accumulation and trade by uniting the majority of the planet's economy on one sound market-based choice of money. Its tragic flaw, however, was that by centralising the gold in the vaults of banks and later central banks, it made it possible for banks and governments to increase the supply of money. Well, that's my doorbell. Do you want to continue reading while I just go and check the door?
Sorry, which part are you at?
I'm here. It's tragic flaw.
So its tragic flaw, however, was that by centralising the gold in the vaults of banks and later central banks, it made it possible for banks and governments to increase the supply of money beyond the quantity of gold they held, devaluing the money and transferring part of its value from the money's legitimate holders to the governments and banks. I cannot turn the page because it's on TC's screen, but what I will do is share what I was just looking at, if I can. I
forgot that you need me to change the page as well.
I can't change the page, but I am going to. I was just going to share this, what I was just digging into, which I think, has that worked?
Yes.
Great. I was just digging into. Oh, that's the wrong one. Oh, goodness me. Share something else. Sorry. That's the one. I was just looking at like the history of the gold standard, because I think throughout, well, obviously it goes back further than the year zero, but I just did it from the year zero. But it has sort of fluctuated between a gold standard, or there's even been like a silver standard and other stuff, and obviously different countries at different times and stuff as well. So, but I just think it's quite fascinating. Like if you see when it was a pure gold standard compared to when it wasn't. And I was just going to see if I can make it in a chart so it's easy to see. But yeah, it's really since in like recent times anyway, it was more sort of the 18th or the 19th century, so the 1800s were in a pretty much a classic gold standard. But I mean, since in the 20th century, it hasn't been at all. And so just getting that like context, I think, is so helpful when you're reading a book like this, just because otherwise it's just sort of gobbledygook.
What does it say about the Byzantine Empire? Because as far as I know, the Byzantine Empire is the longest running empire ever.
Yeah, he talks about that in this chapter, I think. So
right. Well, it wouldn't surprise me if I mean, it says there, this represented one of history's most successful gold standards. So if they had a successful gold standard and it's the longest serving empire ever, well, that says something.
Yeah,
your screen's doing some mad coding on the right. I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, it's supposed to be making a chart to make it easier to see. So whether it actually happens or not, I don't know.
Oh, there we go.
How do I view that in bigger? Don't know. Let's Do it like that. So yeah, there was basically the Roman Empire. Yeah, it was in 64 AD. There was what was he called? Some guy who came in charge that he started like devalue. He was the first guy to start debasing gold.
They would chip little pieces of
so he started
the corner.
with chipping it off.
Yeah.
But then it just became full on debasing, where they just put in copper into gold.
Yeah, and tungsten as well. I think
476 AD, where the Roman monetary collapse. You know, it took them hundreds of years to go from when they first started debasing it to actually fully collapsing. But if you look throughout history, eventually it's every single time. As soon as one country or one place moves away from this scarce asset where there is a limited supply, every time eventually it collapses, and there's varying timelines.
I mean, look at the crisis markers of that one, like continuous debasement of currency. This is the fall of the Roman Empire, or Roman monetary collapse. Continuous debasement of currency. Do we have that nowadays? Yes. Hyperinflation and economic chaos. Well, we've got inflation, we've got economic chaos. Some countries have hyperinflation, like Lebanon right now. Loss of international monetary confidence. Tick, check. And what's that last thing in the red? Like system collapse, you know, so.
Yeah, and I mean, you just go through this. And, you know, this is just me typing this into AI.
Yeah.
But you can honestly go down such a deep rabbit hole here. Just dig in a little bit more, especially if you use the book. If you can like even just take a picture of it, plug that into AI, you can get some incredible insights into what happens. And so this is not just one person saying this, you know, this is not just, and this is the way that I use AI quite a lot anyway, is just to dive deeper into a rabbit hole, because every time I read a book, I'm like, well, yeah, but what does that actually mean? You know, I would love to have a conversation with someone about figuring it out, and that's what AI allows me to do, basically.
Right, let me jump back in. Did you read the rest of this page, or shall I just...
Yeah, finish that one.
You finished that one, okay. So I'll crack on to the next page. Right then. Why gold? To understand how commodity money emerges, we return in more detail to the easy money trap we first introduced in Chapter 1, and begin by differentiating between a good's market demand for consuming or holding the good for its own sake, and its monetary demand for a good as a medium of exchange and store of value. Anytime a person chooses a good as a store of value, she is effectively increasing the demand for it beyond the regular market demand, which will cause its price to rise. For example, market demand for copper in its various industrial uses is around 20 million tonnes per year, at a price of around $5,000 per tonne, and a total market valued around $100 billion. Imagine a billionaire deciding he would like to store $10 billion of his wealth in copper. As his bankers run around trying to buy 10% of annual global copper production, they would inevitably cause the price of copper to increase. Initially, this sounds like a vindication of the billionaire's monetary strategy. The asset he decided to buy has already appreciated before he has even completed his purchase. Surely, he reasons, this appreciation will cause more people to buy more copper as a store of value, bringing the price up even more. But even if more people join him in monetizing copper, our hypothetical copper-obsessed billionaire is in trouble. The rising price makes copper a lucrative business for workers and capital around the world. The quantity of copper under the earth is beyond our ability to even measure, let alone extract through mining, so practically speaking, the only binding restraint on how much copper can be produced is how much labour and capital is dedicated to the job. More copper can always be made with a higher price, and the price and quantity will continue to rise until they satisfy the monetary investors' demand. Let's assume that happens at 10 million extra tonnes and $10,000 per tonne. At some point, monetary demand must subside, and some holders of copper will want to offload some of their stockpiles to purchase other goods, because after all, that was the point of buying copper. After the monetary demand subsides, all else being equal, the copper market would go back to its original supply and demand conditions, with 20 million annual tonnes selling for $5,000 each. But as the holders begin to sell their accumulated stocks of copper, the price will drop significantly below that. The billionaire will have lost money in this process as he was driving the price up. He bought most of his stock for more than $5,000 a ton, but now his entire stock is valued below $5,000 a ton. The others who joined him later bought at even higher prices, and he will have lost even more money, and will have lost even more money than the billionaire himself. This model is applicable for all consumable commodities such as copper, zinc, nickel, brass, or oil, which are primarily consumed and destroyed, not stockpiled. Global stockpiles of these commodities at any moment in time are around the same order of magnitude as new annual production. New supply is constantly being generated to be consumed. Should savers decide to store their wealth in one of these commodities, their wealth will only buy a fraction of global supply before bidding the price up enough to absorb all their investment, because they are competing with the consumers of this commodity who use it productively in industry. As the revenue to the producers of the good increases, they can then invest in increasing their production, bringing the price crashing down again, robbing the savers of their wealth. The net effect of this entire episode is the transfer of the wealth of the misguided savers to the producers of the commodity they purchased. What do you think of that? What can you compare that to?
Yeah, well, just that whole bit is... It explains as well why people don't really understand MicroStrategy as well. That's what that whole
I was thinking that whole thing about Saifedean.
Because that is why what he's doing will work. Whereas if he did it on copper or any other commodity, I think he even says this in the book somewhere, like someone lost like $1 billion trying to do this exact thing with something like copper, because it doesn't work, because there's unlimited amounts that, like, basically if the price goes up, people realize there's money to be made, so they go and mine it more.
They'll go and mine it more, and then the supply can then quite easily meet the demand.
That's it.
The beauty of Bitcoin is that even if there's a high demand and it keeps going up, the supply is completely fixed in. You know, even if more and more miners go on.
Yeah.
Even if more and more miners go, right, we need to get on this Bitcoin thing. Let's mine. Let's keep mining and mining and mining. The schedule for the amount is locked in. It's set, and it halves each 4 years. So, and also as more miners join the blockchain, then the difficulty of actually getting those Bitcoin increases. So it's almost a solution to this issue, which I can see why billionaires now, like Saylor, are going, okay, I'm going to store my value in Bitcoin. Even more so than gold.
That's it. It's just it's a no-brainer when you actually work it out. And I even understand why people take on leverage to buy it, although it's still not really within my risk tolerance and profile at the moment. So
yeah,
but yeah, like I think
me too.
Yeah, the thing with this whole part is as well is like when the price of copper goes up, you not only does it increase the supply, but it also at the same time it will be a price that some people that hold it are willing to sell at. And so this is what's happened with Bitcoin. This is why these 4-year cycles have been quite, they've repeated like clockwork, basically, because there are always going to be people in any free market. There's always a price where people are like, that's enough for me, you know, and I'm going to take some profit. You know, if you bought Bitcoin back in the 2010 or something, and you bought 1,000 for what would have probably been. How much would that have been? Like, what was it about?
It'd be in the hundreds of pounds. It would have been in 2010.
Yeah, you know, like when it's,
it
was literally zero, wasn't it?
Yeah, like pounds, like.
So you might have been able to buy it for like £1.
Yeah,
1,000 of it. If you've bought 1,000, why would you not sell 3 when it gets to 100,000?
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
like,
yeah.
You've still got 997. So
this is, there's been a lot of talk recently about, well, if everybody's buying. Like all these institutions are buying billions of pounds worth, why is the price not like going sky high? Mm-hmm. And it was on one of Jack Mallers' podcasts, I think last week or the week before. He basically said, well, when it gets to a certain price, people sell as well. Mm-hmm. Like it gets to all-time highs and people are cashing out.
It's like
you
the
know, because
people we met
not
in,
everybody is like hodling forever.
yeah,
People bought it at say 20,000, 50,000, and it gets to 120, and they think, well, I'm just going to sell, and so there's more actually entering the market as well to meet the demand.
everyone
That's
always
what his
has a
answer was
price.
anyway.
Everyone
Yeah.
always has a price, and like that, the people we met in the cyberpunk boat in Prague. There's people that have been in it since 2010, 12,
Yep.
13, whatever it was.
Mm.
They might have hundreds of Bitcoin or potentially thousands or something, and it's like, well, do I really want to just take out leverage and put it on a centralized exchange where it's putting more risk, or do I just want to sell a small part of it and take out the profits? Even if you're listening to this now and you don't have any Bitcoin, and then let's just say you bought 1 Bitcoin now or something, there is a price at where you'd be like, okay, I might just sell a tenth of it or something, whether it's a million, 10 million, 100 million, whatever the price is, there will be a price. And that same thing has already happened to those people. It's just that they're 5-10 years ahead of where you are now when you're in your purchasing journey, sort of thing. So I think, but that's where, with Bitcoin having that fixed supply, the number still goes up. It still does number go up, even with people having a price that they're willing to sell at. And really, it's only going to be people that still don't fully understand it that are going to be selling it, and they're just going to be converting back to the existing system. Whereas people like Jeff Booth and people that have already like made that switch, they now just price everything in Bitcoin. They live on a Bitcoin standard. The only thing that's interesting or is worth getting is Bitcoin. So they probably are not going to be selling.
That is probably a rarity as well, I would say.
Yeah, it's a fraction of a think, what is there, something like 3% of people that own Bitcoin or something today? You hear numbers flying around, all different numbers all over the place. But out of those, let's just say it is 3% of the world own Bitcoin. Out of those 3%, there's probably 5% at a push that really, and then there's probably only like 1% that really understand it, and there's a fraction of a percent that really understand it, like Jeff Booth understands it. And so there's those layers within that system as well. Yeah.
Cool. Let's crack on. So this is the anatomy of a market bubble. Increased demands causes a sharp rise in prices, which drives further demand, raising prices further, incentivizing increased production and increased supply, which inevitably brings prices down, punishing everyone who bought at a price higher than the usual market price. Investors in the bubble are fleeced while producers of the asset benefit. For copper and almost every other commodity in the world, this dynamic has held true for most of recorded history, consistently punishing those who choose these commodities as money by devaluing their wealth and impoverishing them in the long run, and returning the commodity to its natural role as a market good, and not a medium of exchange. For anything to function as a good store of value, it has to beat this trap. It has to appreciate when people demand it as a store of value, but its producers have to be constrained from inflating the supply significantly enough to bring the price down. Such an asset will reward those who choose it as their store of value, increasing their wealth in the long run as it becomes the prime store of value, because those who chose other commodities will either reverse course by copying the choice of their more successful peers, or will simply lose their wealth. The clear winner in this race throughout human history has been gold, which maintains its monetary role due to two unique physical characteristics that differentiate it from other commodities. First, gold is so chemically stable that it is virtually impossible to destroy, and second, gold is impossible to synthesize from other materials, alchemists' claims notwithstanding, and can only be extracted from its unrefined ore, which is extremely rare in our planet. It's interesting talking about alchemy there. Like, you heard these old like medieval stories of like alchemists and sorcerers and whatnot trying to convert lead into gold, and this has been the thing for like thousands of years. And I was thinking about that the other day, and nobody's ever successfully managed to like change lead into gold or some, base metal into gold, although they were trying. But with the fiat system, they're successfully converting paper into gold. Like they've just done another sleight of hand there, and now the alchemists are literally converting paper into gold. Like it's alchemy at its core.
It is ridiculous. I think people will look back.
It's like wizards run the Federal Reserve,
and people will look back on this stage of life and just be like, they did what? And people actually went along with this. Like, it honestly is ridiculous when you actually say it out loud and think about it. Again, from first principles, not from what you know about money and stuff. You have to strip everything back and go straight back to first principles. It's ridiculous what is going on.
Yeah, it's absurd, definitely. There's a layer of coercion though, and like manipulation, and involved as well. I think that's the whole other rabbit hole. But it's almost been like forced upon. I mean, I think. Have you ever read the book? Again, it's a book I haven't read, but The Creature from Jekyll Island.
Yeah, I did years ago.
You did, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that talks about like, I think it was President Woodrow Wilson that brought in the Federal Reserve Act originally, but for like decades before that, the people that ran the banks would try and like desperately any way to get this Federal Reserve into power, and somehow like Wilson was compromised in some way, and he eventually was the president that brought it in. So it was kind of like through coercion and probably blackmail and nefarious tactics, manipulation, all these kind of typical things. It came in. So there we go. Maybe we'll do that one at some point, because I haven't read that one, but it's meant to be a classic.
Yeah, actually, I've just been speaking to my wife last night about getting my daughter now is just turning 5, and there's these kids books on I can't remember what they're called, but they're basically, one of them is The Creature from Jekyll Island, but they're apparently
really
they're really good at they're basically I'm fairly sure the authors are like Bitcoiners and understand all this sort of stuff, but it's really good at, and like I think there's a lot of entrepreneurship and stuff, so I'm excited actually to read that with her. And
that'd be good.
Apparently they're good for kids as well. Like they're actually like, they're just fictional, but explain a lot of these concepts. So yeah.
But it explains the creature from Federal Reserve, the creature from Jekyll Island.
One of them is called The Creature from Jekyll Island. Yeah.
I might have to start on that before the actual main one. Right then. The chemical stability of gold implies that virtually all of the gold ever mined by humans is still more or less owned by people around the world. Humanity has been accumulating an ever-growing hoard of gold in jewellery, coins and bars, which is never consumed and never rusts or disintegrates. The impossibility of synthesizing gold from other chemicals means that the only way to increase the supply of gold is by mining gold from the earth, an expensive, toxic and uncertain process in which humans have been engaged for thousands of years, with ever-diminishing returns. This all means that the existing stockpile of gold held by people around the world is the product of thousands of years of gold production and is orders of magnitude larger than new annual production. Over the past 7 decades, with relatively reliable statistics, this growth rate has always been around 1.5%, never exceeding 2%. And there's a chart there. What does it say on the left? Thousands, it says. And then it's the date here. Annual stockpile growth, total gold stockpiles.
Yeah, the grey line is the total stockpile, and then the black line is
growth.
The axis on the right, showing that it's like 1.5 to 2%. It's pretty consistent as well. So, it makes sense why gold has always been the best form of money. I don't think anyone can, before Bitcoin, there is no argument here. It is the best form of money.
I mean, even like Lawrence Lepard, who did the big print, he says he's massive advocate for Bitcoin and gold.
Yeah.
He doesn't see it as an either or. Oh, you've got to pick. He's both.
Yeah.
Gold is good. Bitcoin is good.
I would agree. I actually obviously no one knows what's going to happen, but I cannot see them going, you know what, let's just move to a Bitcoin standard. They're not going to openly do that. So I imagine there will be a stage where they might even do, with the US now having a strategic stockpile or whatever it is.
Announced. I don't think they're there just yet, but
yeah,
they've said they're going to do it.
And didn't they? Isn't it something like they only actually own 26,000? I only just saw that this week.
I saw that. There was some like freedom of information request, and they actually.
Which is mad.
I think they said they own 200,000, but actually, when somebody did a FOIA
I thought they
request,
confiscated over 200,000. They said any confiscation was now just on their books, but I mean that would be really stupid if they have done that. It's always sort of raised alarm bells for me. It's like, why would they just announce to everyone that we're going to stockpile it? I know they already had 200, well, supposedly had 200,000, and now maybe not, but it just seems weird. I feel like there's going to be more to this.
Governments don't announce anything unless it's for a reason. They don't just openly say every single move to the public, because they'll not announce things for a strategic reason, and they will publicly announce things for a strategic reason as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Watch this space.
Yeah.
To understand the difference between gold and any consumable commodity, imagine the effect of a large increase in demand for it as a store of value that causes the price to spike and annual production to double. For any consumable commodity, this doubling of output will dwarf any existing stockpiles, bringing the price crashing down and hurting the holders. For gold, a price spike that causes a doubling of annual production will be insignificant, increasing stockpiles by 3% rather than 1.5%. If the new increased pace of production is maintained, the stockpiles grow faster, making new increases less significant. It remains practically impossible for gold miners to mine quantities of gold large enough to depress the price significantly. Only silver comes close to gold in this regard, with an annual supply growth rate historically around 5 to 10%, rising to around 20% in the modern day. This is higher than that of gold for two reasons. First, silver does corrode and can be consumed in industrial processes, which means the existing stockpiles are not as large relative to annual production as gold's stockpiles are relative to its annual production. Second, silver is less rare than gold in the crust of the earth and easier to refine. Because of having the second highest stock-to-flow ratio and its lower value per unit of weight than gold, silver served for millennia as the main money used for smaller transactions, complementing gold, whose high value meant dividing it into smaller units, which was not very practical. The adoption of the international gold standard allowed for payments in paper backed by gold at any scale, as will be discussed in more detail later in this chapter, which obviated silver's monetary role. With silver no longer required for smaller transactions, it soon lost its monetary role and became an industrial metal, losing value compared to gold. Silver may maintain its sporting connotation for second place, but as 19th century technology made payments possible without having to move the monetary unit itself, second place in monetary competition was equivalent to losing out. This explains why the silver bubble has popped before and will pop again if it ever inflates. As soon as significant monetary investment flows into silver, it is not as difficult for producers to increase the supply significantly and bring the price crashing down, taking the saver's wealth in the process. The best known example of the easy money trap comes from the silver itself, of all commodities. Back in the late 1970s, the very affluent Hunt brothers decided to bring about the remonetization of silver and started buying enormous quantities of silver, driving the price up. Their rationale was that as the price rose, more people would want to buy, which would keep the price rising, which in turn would lead to people wanting to be paid in silver. Yet no matter how much the Hunt brothers bought, their wealth was no match for the ability of miners and holders of silver to keep selling silver onto the market. The price of silver eventually crashed and the Hunt brothers lost over $1 billion, probably the highest price ever paid for learning the importance of the stock-to-flow ratio and why not all that glitters is gold. See figure 2.
Yeah, that's the story I was mentioning earlier. I knew that came up about being over $1 billion. So it was silver as well. That's not even like copper. It's supposedly another hard hard asset. But when those percentages, if you on the previous page, he's talked about 1.5, and if it doubles, it goes to 3%. It doesn't sound like much. Or silver is about 10% or something, isn't it? Again, even from like 1.5 to 10% doesn't sound like much. But when you look at the chart like this, where it shows gold is going to, at 1.5%, is more like around 50 years. I think that chart shows 60, but it's the rule of 72, isn't it? So if you divide 72 divided by 1.5, that gives you around 48. So that's, but obviously it depends on where gold is. If it goes up to 3%, you divide 72 by 3, and that would give you, 26 or something like that. Whereas silver at 10% is going to be more like, 7 years, it's going to double. So the difference sounds small. 1.5 to 10 sounds small, but the difference in supply growth is massive. It's absolutely, going from 7 to 50 years is a huge difference. So it's getting, that's the key I find with understanding the stock to flow is understanding how many years is it until something doubles again. And so and this is the part that I just think most people still don't understand with Bitcoin, even though it's now higher than gold, but it's actually going to be infinity. Bitcoin is never going to double again, and we cannot understand that because we've never had that before. So we have nothing to compare it to.
Yeah, very interesting. It is this consistently low rate of supply of gold that is the fundamental reason it has maintained its monetary role throughout human history, a role it continues to hold today as central banks continue to hold significant supplies of gold to protect their paper currencies. Official Official central bank reserves are at around 33,000 tonnes, or a sixth of total above ground gold. The high stock-to-flow ratio of gold makes it the commodity with the lowest price elasticity of supply, which is defined as the percentage increase in quantity supplied over the percentage increase in price. Given that the existing supply of gold held by people everywhere is the product of thousands of years of production, an X% increase in price may cause an increase in new mining production, but that increase will be trivial compared to existing stockpiles. For instance, the year 2006 witnessed a 36% rise in the spot price of gold. For any other commodity, this would be expected to increase mining output significantly to flood the markets and bring the price down. Instead, annual production in 2006 was 2,370 tonnes, 100 tonnes less than in 2005. And it will drop a further 10 tonnes in 2007, whereas the new supply was 1.67% of existing stockpiles in 2005, it was 1.58% of existing stockpiles in 2006, and 1.54% of existing stockpiles in 2007. Even a 35% rise in price can lead to no appreciable increase in the supply of new gold onto the market. According to the US Geological Survey, the single biggest annual increase in production was around 15% in the year 1923, which translated to an increase in stockpiles around only 1.5%. Even if production were to double, the likely increase in stockpiles would only be around 3 to 4%. The highest annual increase in global stockpiles happened in 1940, when stockpiles rose by around 2.6%. Not once has the annual stockpile growth exceeded that number, and not once since 1942 has it exceeded 2%. As the production of metals began to proliferate, ancient civilizations in China, India, and Egypt began to use copper, and later silver, as money, as these two were relatively hard to manufacture at the time and allowed for good salability across time and space. Gold was highly prized in these civilizations, but its rarity meant its salability for transactions was limited. It was in Greece, the birthplace of modern civilization, where gold was first minted into regular coins for trade under King, there's that name again, Croesus?
I would just say Croesus.
Croesus? This invigorated global trade as gold's global appeal saw the coin spread far and wide. Since then, the turns of human history have been closely intertwined with the soundness of money. Human civilization flourished in times and places where sound money was widely adopted, while unsound money all too frequently coincided with civilizational decline and societal collapse. Yeah, I mean, civilizational decline. What does that look like? Well, it looks like people are getting more and more unhealthy. It looks like quality of food decreasing. It looks like all the things that we see around us right now looks like civilizational decline. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, can you think of any other examples?
Divorce rate,
mental health,
rates, how many kids people have,
suicides,
all of it.
Mental health.
And again, when you think about it first, there's no obvious connection between the money and all of these issues. Whereas when you go deeper, you realise everything is caused because of that. I mean, and even just anecdotally, think back to like my grandparents. My mum's family was one of 6, and my dad was an only child, but his best friend was one of 10, and so he basically grew up with them, sort of thing. So, they were basically like 16, 17 within 2 families, sort of thing. Whereas today, do you know anyone that has 6 kids or 5 kids or?
I know one guy, but he's a rarity, definitely. But yeah, that's birth rates, exactly. Yeah, I mean, among my friends, there's a lot of, money is an issue with, I've got friends that have been together for, 10 plus years, but they don't want to have a kid just yet because, of financial reasons. So it's another huge factor which boils down to this. And then obviously if a civilization or a society isn't having, even the same amount of kids as the previous generation, it just starts dwindling and dwindling. There's less people, which has its consequences. Yeah,
if you haven't seen this already, I would highly recommend this, or even just sending this to people, because it literally just shows everything there. And every chart, 1971, crap food, boom, and then divorce, boom. It's just and
so 71 was when America came off was it the Bretton Woods, the gold standard?
Yeah, it was the
Nixon shock, was it?
It was Charles de Gaulle, French president at the time, was said to America, like, we don't believe that you've got the gold that you say you do.
We want our gold back.
It was basically a bank run on the US, and so Nixon didn't have a choice. He had to do it. He depegged the US dollar from gold, which at the same time, because the US was then the reserve asset or reserve currency, the whole world, for the first time ever as well. That's the thing, is that in all of those historical things that we looked at before, it's not the whole world at the same time. It's been individual countries or societies that come off and go on at different stages, whereas this is, as far as I'm aware,
the global
this is the
reserve.
first time the whole world is now backed by nothing. The money is backed by nothing.
Interesting. Yeah, well, it went to be backed by was it oil? The petrodollar came in instead.
Yeah,
but that had its own consequences in itself, because then America went on this tyrannical rampage of just invading countries to get oil. But then you get a bit conspiratorial there. But I mean, I'll give you an example. Or will it be a bit dodgy to say on you? I don't even know. But for example, Iraq, Saddam Hussein was selling their oil for dollars.
Yeah.
And then in 1999, he started selling their oil for euros instead. So he moved away from the petrodollar. And then, for some reason or other, America invaded Iraq. When was it? 2001, 2002. Even though, we now know they had no weapons of mass destruction. That's mainstream knowledge now. Even the most mainstream of publications will say that whole thing was nonsense. And then Saddam's regime got toppled by America. And then when, America went to, instill democracy or regime change, what was the first What was the first thing they did? Well, they forced them to start selling their oil for dollars again, and it's like, well, things that make you go, you know.
I know, and this is the thing, is that a lot of these things are seen as like conspiracy theories as well, but it's just like, but just use your brain and think about it. Like, but it's been public knowledge for ages, and the whole BRICS countries have been trying to get off the US dollar, and they've been trying to use something else. So it's only a matter of time, isn't it?
Right. Well, let's do. Should we do the Roman Golden Age?
Yeah.
And then,
shall I read that one?
Yeah, go on then. We'll go up to that one, and then see how we get on.
Yeah, definitely watch Jack Mahler's talk if you haven't.
Yeah.
It's got so many good charts in there and stuff, and it baffles me how someone can see that and not make the connection.
Exactly, yeah.
But apparently it still happened. I literally showed it to some friends, and they were still like, no, there's no connection there. It's like, what? They're like, no, it's to do with other things. It's like technology. It's like, okay. Right. So the denarius was the silver coin that traded at the time of the Roman Republic, containing 3.9 grams of silver, while gold became the most valuable money in the civilized areas of the world at the time, and gold coins were becoming more widespread. Julius Caesar, the last dictator of the Roman Republic, created the aureus coin, which contained around 8 grams of gold and was widely accepted across Europe and the Mediterranean, increasing the scope of trade and specialization in the Old World. Economic stability reigned for 75 years, even through the political upheaval of his assassination, which saw the Republic transformed into an empire under his chosen successor, Augustus. This continued until the reign of the infamous Emperor Nero, that's the guy I was thinking of earlier, who was the first to engage in the Roman habit of coin clipping, wherein the emperor would collect the coins of the population and mint them into newer coins with less gold or silver content. I believe they use copper. For as long as Rome could conquer new lands with significant wealth, its soldiers and emperors could enjoy spending their loot, and emperors even decided to buy themselves popularity by mandating artificially low prices of grains and other staples, sometimes even granting them for free. Again, does that sound familiar? Artificially low food, apart from grains and cereals, it's shit food. Instead of
granting them for free. This is the subsidies that we were talking about in the last episode. They subsidize food companies that put seed oils and all this kind of crap in there. So Nero was doing the same thing.
Exactly. Instead of working for a living in the countryside, many peasants would leave their farms to move to Rome, where they could live better lives for free. With time, again, I can see this happening. Have you seen like the whole Saudi Arabia, the line or whatever they call it? Have you seen this before?
Yeah, I have actually. Yeah.
Matt, I would put money on that being a place where you could basically just go and live for pretty much free. So I was in Qatar for like 8 years, and they just subsidize. They give you like free accommodation, free. There's no tax. It's just like when we went there, we're like, whoa, you could actually been able to save some money. And 100% this is what is going to happen at different places of the world, and it will just attract people coming to there. But I mean, it's just so it's literally a house of cards is going to collapse at some stage. And so with time, the old world no longer had prosperous lands to be conquered. The ever-increasing lavish lifestyle and growing military required some new source of financing, and the number of unproductive citizens living off the emperor's largesse and price controls increased. Nero, who ruled from 54 to 68 AD, had found the formula to solve this, which was highly similar to Keynes's solution to Britain's and the US's problems after World War One. Any guess? Devaluing the currency would at once reduce the real wages of workers, reduce the burden of the government in subsidising staples, and provide increased money for financing other government expenditure. The aureus coin was reduced from 8 to 7.2 grams.
Sounds like a shit coin. Aureus coin.
It should say Ethereum.
Yeah.
While the denarius's silver content was reduced from 3.9 to 3.41 grams. This provided some temporary relief, but had set in motion the highly destructive, self-reinforcing cycle of popular anger, price controls, coin debasement, and price rises, following one another with the predictable regularity of the 4 seasons. Under the reign of Caracalla in AD 211 to 217, the gold content was further reduced to 6.5 grams, and under Diocletian, AD 284 to 305, it was further reduced to 5.5 grams, before he introduced a replacement coin called the Solidus, with only 4.5 grams of gold. So again, can you just see how it's conveniently, what is it? The first one, 211, 6.5 grams. Then it's 284. So it's not within your lifetime. So it's very, and again, this has happened, 1913 is when the Federal Reserve came in, and then the whole gold thing changed slightly. And then in 1944, it was Bretton Woods. Again, conveniently, like one generation later, where it reduced it went from like, $20, it was $20 an ounce of gold to 35 overnight. And then in 1971, completely removed. Again, conveniently one generation later. So
and then 2008.
And then 2008 crisis, and then there's going to be something else. So it's just
well, then maybe you could say COVID 2020, more money printing was the next one.
And there's always just like enough time between it where it's not like within one generation.
It's like the boiling frog analogy, isn't it? Like
you can't just stick a frog in a pan of boiling water, but if you boil it, he won't notice, and then you can boil him. On Diocletian's watch, the denarius only had traces of silver to cover its bronze core, and the silver would disappear quite quickly with wear and tear, ending the denarius as a silver coin. As inflationism intensified in the 3rd and 4th centuries, with it came the misguided attempts of the emperors to hide their inflation by placing price controls on basic goods. As market forces sought to adjust prices upward in response to the debasement of the currency, price ceilings prevented these price adjustments, making it unprofitable for producers to engage in production. Economic production would come to a standstill until a new edict allowed for the liberalization of prices upward. With this fall in the value of its money, the long process of terminal decline of the empire resulted in a cycle that might appear familiar to modern readers. Coin clipping reduced the Aureus's value.
Was that the name of the coin?
I think so.
Shitcoin, Aureus coin.
Yeah. Increasing the money supply, allowing the emperor to continue imprudent overspending, but eventually resulting in inflation and economic crisis, which the misguided emperors would attempt to ameliorate via further coin clipping. Ferdinand Lips summarizes this process with a lesson to modern readers. It should be of interest to modern Keynesian economists, as well as to the present generation of investors, that although the emperors of Rome frantically tried to manage their economies, they only succeeded in making matters worse. Price and wage controls and legal tender laws were passed, but it was like trying to hold back the tides. Rioting, corruption, lawlessness, and a mindless mania for speculation and gambling engulfed the empire like a plague. With money so unreliable and debased, speculation in commodities became far more attractive than producing them.
Ding, ding, ding.
I was laughing there just because, it literally just sums everything up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Have you seen like the increase in gambling in the Western world in the last...
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. It's so easy now as well to just, everything's an app, and people are gambling on everything as well.
But it just makes sense because you've got so much more chance of getting ahead by doing it rather than being honest and working for the future, because it's so uncertain. No one knows what is going to be, so everyone has to gamble. Like, is it to the extent that you can't even just leave your money in the bank, which should be the safe thing to do. Doing that is literally destroying you. So you have to gamble. Like, basically, by investing, that is taking a risk.
When you say gambling, do you mean like sports gambling and stuff, or?
Yeah, so much sports gambling. just even like with crypto, not Bitcoin, but like crypto itself, it's so many of the young generation are seeing this as their only means of actually getting ahead.
Yeah, and of the couple of mates that I know of that have got into day trading and speculative altcoins and meme coins and stuff, both of them have been absolutely wrecked. Like they've left with less than nothing. Will. Yeah,
it's because I mean even day traders will, like, even like professional ones or whatever, they will struggle in the crypto space because the leverage and like the manipulation is just insane. Like, people know what prices people are looking at, and they just don't get hit, and it's really sad to see, but it just is what it is at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, and they're also playing against like bots and AI and that kind of stuff. Like, imagine going into playing a game of poker with like an AI bot. You're gonna get wrecked.
That's it. So the long-term consequences for the Roman Empire were devastating. Although Rome, up until the 2nd century AD, may not be characterized as a full-fledged free market capitalist economy, because it still had plenty of government restraints on economic activity, with the aureus, it nonetheless established what was then the largest market in human history, with the largest and most productive division of labour the world had ever known. Citizens of Rome and the major cities obtained their basic necessities by trade with the far-flung corners of the empire, and this helps explain the growth in prosperity. And the devastating collapse the empire suffered with the division of labour fell apart. As taxes increased and inflation made price controls unworkable, the urbanties of the cities started fleeing to empty plots of land where they could at least have a chance of living in self-sufficiency, where their lack of income spared them having to pay taxes. The intricate civilizational edifice of the Roman Empire and the large division of labour across Europe and the Mediterranean began to crumble, and its descendants became self-sufficient peasants scattered in isolation and would soon turn into serfs, living under feudal lords.
Oh, we've got something to look forward to then.
But I mean, just even like see the amount of rioting and just civil unrest across the world. It's just it's just increasing at a pretty alarming rate. And again, it all comes down to people are aware that something's not right, but not knowing what that thing is.
Yeah, I mean, I think it might be in Lynn Alden's book. She talks about that this increase in like populism and these kind of like extreme politics on both sides is a byproduct that people know something's not right and they're blaming it on certain, groups of people and that kind of stuff. I mean, you look at like hyperinflation in 1920s Germany, and then, within 20 years, they blamed a certain group of people and just started going after expelling them and exterminating them, that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, that was a byproduct, and that people at the time was like, yeah, this is the problem.
Yeah,
this is the issue.
Byproducts of money, the hyperinflation.
Seeing that same symptom today as well.
And this is what I was saying in, I think it was the first episode we did, where I just wish people could see this. This is the revolution, and it's the most peaceful revolution that has ever existed. Like, if people understood, and that's what Bitcoin is, I think if people could see that, it would orange pill so many more people, because I think it's still seen as this scammy online money, which is just, it only helps people who have bought it early. Whereas they don't realise we are so early. That's the thing with it. We are incredibly early right now. This is almost definitely going to be a time in history where people will look back on this time as this is the invention of money.
Yeah.
For the first time ever.
Sound money, yeah.
Which, it will just be used and it'll be so normal. Whereas right now, it's like, what the fuck is this? What are we dealing with here? No one gets it, and it is the revolution against all of the stuff that we spoke about, it's pretty much it is the thing,
the solution to this issue which people have been battling with for thousands of years,
as you can see from history.
Yeah, same issues we face today, the Roman Empire faced as well.
Yep, and it's not just the Roman Empire, as the book goes on. It's literally, it is the core issue of everything, really.
Should we leave it there for this one and then continue? We've done an hour. I'm going to have to shoot off in a couple of minutes anyway, so we'll continue on with Byzantium and the Bezant next episode.
Yeah, that's a good bit actually as well, isn't it?
Cool. Right then, we'll call it a day. See you next week for episode 4. See you later.
See ya.